Hello, welcome back, and thank you, as always, for joining me today. We're going to take a look today at a foundational idea from A Course in Miracles. And as always, welcome. It makes no difference whether you're a long-time student of the course or whether you're a student at all, and you've just happened, so it appears, upon this video. There's nothing random about it. There is no coincidence at all. After all, of course, there's a reason if you just stumbled upon this material, why you happened to stumble upon it. So stick around. You'll know exactly what it is when you hear it. What exactly that will be, who knows? But what we're doing today is we're going to take a look at one of these ideas that is repeated throughout A Course in Miracles. And it's been said in many different ways, in many different succinct and articulate ways, that the Course has the same few ideas which it repeats over and over again over well over 1,000 pages worth of material, which, when bound together, is a pretty thick book. This is true, isn't it, of all spiritual traditions, repeating the same idea, and sometimes on a different day, in different words, and here in A Course in Miracles, slightly different words in a different part of the Course, because we don't actually know when we're going to get it. We don't actually know when that proverbial light bulb is going to flash on and illuminate our walk. Maybe that's right now. And so what we do is we show up with as open a mind as we can. Right here, the concept that you may be familiar with of beginner's mind from Zen Buddhism is very appropriate. What we mean by this is we show up to learn. Honestly, we show up and we set our preconceived notions to the side. They have not served us. We set our preconceived notions, our sense of being a know-it-all, our very unhelpful sense of, oh, that's so yesterday. I saw that last week. Oh, did you practice and incorporate it into your life so that it becomes habit and is a game changer last week? Right? We all hear these ideas in our lives, and they're prominent in popular culture, no matter where we come from here in the world. It's not helpful in spirituality at all to say, oh, that's so yesterday. There is no yesterday. There is only the present moment, which, of course, you've heard before. It's one of those extraordinarily simple, obvious ideas that we need to hear again. Why? Because we're not here in the present most of the time. You're here now, which is fantastic. But when you think about it, we spend almost all of our lives worrying about future events that are not here. They're not here. They're not now. Yet we're wondering what's going to happen when we get to the office today, when we confront our impatient supervisor, for example. I mean, yeah. And we spend the rest of our time almost on the past, what we could have done, what we coulda, woulda, shoulda said to somebody yesterday or last week or 28 years ago. things that we seem to recall with crystal clarity, and we spend the present moment on things that are not here. I mean, it's an obvious idea, yet when you think about it, we're scattered. So, what you're doing here in taking time out of your day or your evening, whatever it is that you've got going on in your life, this time that you're spending is of huge, great importance. So I thank you for that very, very much. It's important. Let's look at this foundational idea from A Course in Miracles. Ideas leave not their source. If you've watched these videos before, you've heard that before. So we'll spend some time here talking about what that means and what it means to you. Not abstract. This is a course in mind training, and Jesus is addressing the split mind, the mind that thinks it's separate from God, which it's not. Ideas leave not their source, and you're an idea. Capital S. Okay, there we go. Skipped right to the end, spoiler alert. But let's back up a little bit, because this has many different ways of being expressed in our lives. What we're looking at here specifically from the text of A Course in Miracles is chapter 22, section 2, paragraphs 9 through 13. So there's a lot to talk about. What we're looking at here as we forgive, what we're looking at when we make the choice in the present moment to follow the guidance of Jesus or to follow the guidance of the Holy Spirit, same, doesn't matter which, or call it whatever you want to call it. Call it your guide or guides if you want to. If you happen to have a high council, then fantastic. Call it your high council. It is part of you. It's part of our mind. So whatever you call it, I often refer to it as our inner teacher. Inner teacher, yeah. So however that looks for you, we are in need of healing the mind here in the world. As we think we're separate individuals, what's going on here is we believe that we have the power to cast our thoughts out of our mind, to project them, to get them out and have them be outside of us. Another way of looking at this is we believe that what we've made has the power to enslave its maker. In other words, we can put them out of our mind. So, what the Course means by this is when we project our thoughts of guilt, of fear, when we project them, we are engaged in a mad and futile, completely futile, not going to work, impossible attempt to cast these thoughts out of our mind. We do this all the time, and most of the time without thinking and without being aware that we're doing it. It's habit. It's deeply ingrained. It's our conditioning. Enter A Course in Miracles, which shows us and points this out that, well, we're suffering from the belief that we can eject and cast our thoughts out of our mind. What happens when you believe you've done that is very important to understand. We become afraid of our own thoughts of guilt. We become afraid of our own thoughts, our own fear-based thoughts, which we can't stand. So we've ejected them. So we think, can't do it, but we think we've ejected them and cast them out of our mind. And we have not, but we think we have, and we see them as separate things that we become afraid of, paranoid about, thinking that our brother, who looks to be a separate individual, projection, is going to get us, going to get our stuff, take our social status and prestige. And it's very clear as we study the Course that this is a mistake. It's a mistake. That's all. It's not a grievous sin against God, which in fact is impossible because there's only perfect oneness. So let's consider this. If there's only perfect oneness, there's no other to transgress against another. There is no other. There is no other. There is no separation of any kind. So we believe that we can, and we believe that we have, cast our fear-based thoughts out of our own mind. That is not possible. Ideas leave not their source. Lowercase s in this case here. Thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. We only conveniently try to believe, and we adhere to this belief and make it real to ourselves. We think we're projecting our guilt and fear out and on to someone else, to our ex, to a political party, the opposition political party, or to members of our own party who don't agree with us and against whom we appear to be striving for this illusory, made up idea of power. It's an idea. Thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. So, a couple of examples. Let's say that you're walking down the street, something very ordinary, very simple, and you smile at someone. Let's say it's the morning, and you wish them good morning. That's a loving thought. And how do you feel? The thought remains in your mind. Now, if you walk down the street with a scowl and someone says good morning to you, and your response is, or nothing at all, and you think unkind thoughts about this other person, how do you then feel? That thought of standoffishness, of unkindness, remains in your mind. That's just a very simple example, and there are many of those. Even though we would like to believe that we cannot eject our thoughts from our own mind. All of our hateful thoughts remain in our own mind. And they pop back up again in different places at different times, so it appears, in different guises, in the form of someone else today. Or if you've got somebody who continually has these popping up for you in your life, like a boss or a difficult colleague at work or something, they're going to continue to pop up in different forms. We cannot eject our thoughts from our mind. Thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. Ideas leave not their source, the mind. What this also means is and happily, this is the case, our forgiving thoughts, our loving thoughts, our kind thoughts can't leave our mind either. They stay in the mind of the thinker. So we have a choice as to what we would have stay in the mind of the thinker. All of the unforgiving, fear based, vindictive thoughts can be corrected through the practice of true forgiveness done under the guidance of our inner teacher in the present moment. When else? In paragraph 10, Jesus says, "Behold the great projection." Yeah, spinning ball of rock, the world, projections all over the place. The great projection, the world itself is a projection of the mind. It symbolizes fear-based thoughts of separation that we can't stand naturally, and we've ejected them, so we think. We think we've placed them outside of ourselves. We have not. It's very powerful, and if you're hearing this for the first time or the 27th time, however many times you've heard this, when you begin to allow it to permeate your mind, in other words, when that light bulb begins to come on, it's mind blowing. Welcome. Ideas leave not their source. So, power of true forgiveness may, and hopefully does, become readily apparent to you. Loving thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. Loving thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. We have a choice right now in the present moment as to whether we would see our experience with the Holy Spirit or with the ego. And we know the choice that leads to a joyful outcome, which is what we all say we want. And actually, deep down, we all do. Yet we don't act accordingly. So we're invited here, right now, and all of the time to act accordingly. Say you want the peace of God, excellent, extend it. Say you want peace, extend it, give it. That is how you keep it in your mind. As we give something in the mind, forgiveness, love, it strengthens, it grows, so to speak, in our mind. It strengthens in our awareness. We cannot get our thoughts out of our mind. Ideas leave not their source. So let's circle back to the spoiler alert from a few minutes ago. Ideas leave not their source. Capital S. It is impossible for you to separate from the mind of God. It is impossible for you to leave your source. You are a thought of God. We are all the thought of God, the Son of God, singular. This term does not simply refer to the historical Jesus, it's all of us, all one of us, the Son of God, cannot leave its source, capital S. My hope is this answers a lot of questions in your mind. The foundational level questions, such as where am I really? Who am I really? What am I really? Thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. Now, where we've gone wrong here in the world is thinking that we made ourselves. No, God is the author, capital A, creator, capital C. We are the created. Thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. And here's something that's also very powerful. Like extends like. God extends himself. Love extends itself. There is nothing else. It is the only reality. God is the only reality. What would the only reality extend? The only reality. So, as these ideas pop up, whether it's here in this series of videos or whether it's in another series of videos or your own practice, your own readings of this material, or whatever happens to turn up in life to communicate these ideas to you, it's very well for us to be aware of them as much as we can be, awake to them, so to speak, alert to them, so that we may know what we're doing and recognize the power of true forgiveness, recognize the power of allowing the Holy Spirit to guide us. If you've begun to do this, you know what I'm talking about. And even if you have not, you still know what I'm talking about, because deep down, we all want the same thing, the peace of God. Why do we all want the same thing when we appear to want different things here in the world? There is nothing else. There's the peace of God. So naturally, it's what we all want. So, however these ideas come across to you is honestly how they're meant to come across. Now, they can come across very gently, as you may have experienced more than once. They can come across as some sort of a confirmation, or they can seem to be a real blessing, a godsend, so to speak, as we say here in the world, because they confirm or validate something that you just know. And yeah, yes, you do. You just know. Maybe you can relate to that, or they may come across as something that doesn't feel so fancy. We can all relate to that one. I mean, it can come across as challenging to everything that you now hold dear. Yet everything that we now hold dear when we think we're an ego hasn't served us, which is why we're on the spiritual path in the first place, whether you practice this course or not. That's why we're all interested in this. It's because we know there's more to it than just running off to work and checking our email. There's more meaning than that. Of course there is. So I welcome comments and questions here. The comment thread's a perfect place, in fact, to leave a comment, or even if you just wish to pop in and say hello, I'd love to hear from you. It's an international community. There are literally people here from all over the world, which is one of the beautiful things about this modern technology and YouTube and the internet. It gives us the ability to communicate with each other, which is very cool. If you have not yet subscribed, I'd love to have you join us. That's the prompt in the corner of your screen. Click this icon over here, and you will be invited to join us. So, several videos appear here each week, and I thank you very much for joining me on this one, and I'll see you again soon.